you. I'm just going to show you a few slides to explain why we developed our local model. Spend a little time explaining how we've got on so far, just the past year, and if I've got enough time, a couple of examples. So we've been involved for some years in running something called the Warm and Well programme, where we've done the standard measures, 41,000 homes, mostly capital wall installation, etc. What we learned from that is relatively easy to get non-disruptive measures in quickly. Comfort was definitely as important as energy bill savings to the households. It was important that we ran an integrated local programme. I'm working in Gloucestershire and Wiltshire, South Gloucestershire, and an integrated programme was more viable, something for every household, particularly if you're looking at area-based schemes. If you're going down the street, you want to be able to actually do something in every house as you go down that street, or you've wasted some of your time. Extra support for the more vulnerable within that category, and that involved also people time, homeless advice, as well as more financial support. Working with intermediaries really important, particularly to reach vulnerable households, and that needs an ongoing effort. It's not just a one-off. So a few lessons there for our model. So then we tried, what could we do to get deep energy and carbon cuts, a slightly different approach. And what we found, to our relative relief, was that you could achieve 55 to 60% energy and carbon savings in a range of really ordinary local homes, but you needed the full range of measures to do that. You needed to be able to do all the practical measures to achieve it. So the potential is there. That was our big lesson there. So we looked a little bit more closely, 50 detailed case studies of homes, including some of the really difficult ones to treat, Cotswold cottages and listed townhouses. What did we find out? Well, firstly, that the margins are small and that good general building skills are needed. Secondly, that they're disruptive, a lot of the main measures, and best included, therefore, with other work that's also needed, wanted, desired. So we're talking about the repair, maintenance and home improvement market, RMI market. And then we thought, okay, this is mostly dominated by locally active micro-enterprises. Another benefit about working with them is that experienced general trades can provide coordination in complex retrofit, as they have to do in most RMI work. So our big conclusion there was that the long-term outcomes are best achieved by engaging not just local installers, but the general building trades. That was probably our single most important conclusion. A couple of statistics to back that up, which I think are really relevant pieces of academic information from Gavin Killip at BCI and from Alice Owen. The numbers speak for themselves, really. The RMI market was estimated at £20 billion in 2008. 200,000 firms working in the construction industry, 70% of which are micro-enterprises, and 95,000 people in micro-enterprises working on homes RMI. So we've really got to focus on getting that market active in retrofit for energy. Then thinking about the households, well, important factors here was that every home and household was different. There isn't just one solution, obviously. But the other, second very important point I want to make here is that the advice needs, not only do advisors need to be professional, independent, but they also need to be experienced because of the range of issues that they'll find, the range of technologies they're dealing with. The advice needs a multi-stage, not one-off. The follow-through to action is incredibly important and multi-purpose, and advisors need the time to go beyond the basic and the obvious. So there is absolutely no point going for as cheap as possible home assessments. You're wasting the opportunity, and I have an awful lot of examples of that. It's not a quick fix. We need a model for sustained delivery over time, and we're probably talking about 20 to 50 year renovation cycles, or even more, with the housing stock that we know and love and want to preserve and want to future-proof. And then finally, the finance. We did work on a pay-as-you-save pilot, and we looked into what financial options we could offer at local level following that. And our conclusion was to fit the finance to the need, not the sale to the finance, which I think has been raised in some ways already this morning, that a range of finance options are needed in practice, that you do need to cover all of the measures, both the short and the long term, that you need flexibility in case of change of circumstances. And then we started to look at ways to reduce risk, which other speakers here today will know a lot more about than me. And so finally, this was the model we came up with and that we're trying to run. In the middle, it's a bit narcissistic, I know, but in the middle there's households in the middle, but the local contact hub. And we really emphasise the importance of having that contact because of this multi-stage advice need. And those are people who are a real personal contact. I've heard people say that Green Deal starts with the assessment. Of course it doesn't. It starts with actually reaching the clients in the first place, with the marketing and the outreach. So I start at the top at 12 o'clock there and run round in your ideal customer journey. But of course people come in at all kinds of points. And that really just gives you a map of all the key actors involved, from initial contact to assessments to getting planning permissions, building control, and then through to assessment to identify and prioritise the measures, and that's the point at which you look at the finance. Now we are actually offering a low-cost local loan in addition to Green Deal and Eco. We don't know how important that's going to be. It's really expensive to manage it, but we're doing our best. But we did think that people needed a shorter term 3 to 5 year loan as an alternative option to complement the others and to cover any measure they want. And then the installer part is really important to us. And we work a lot with our local installers. We've got a group we've branded Linked to Energy, and it's very much about encouraging the micro enterprises in. And if you work well with them, doing all of those things I've mapped out there, then actually hopefully they do some of your marketing possibly, because you become useful to them and they have a sense of actually, if we tell people it's worth doing green retrofit, they can then get the independent advice to support that, and they come back in to our system that way. And then don't forget the suppliers and the importance of them, and local merchants as well as the big nationals. So that's our model. What's happened so far? We've got 131 local companies in our group. We've only had 2,861 households in 2013 contact us, which is far smaller than in previous years with CERT, I have to say. But we all know big changes in the industry. We've done 550 Green Deal assessments, but thanks to subsidy, I don't think we'd have done that many if they'd all been fully paid for. 53 home visits to vulnerable households, 841 referrals to ECO, but only 250 installations. And our comparison, obviously, with previous years is quite small in terms of total numbers of installations, but we are looking at a wider range now. And then finally, barriers and issues. Well, as everyone will talk about, changes in instability in the market does make it very difficult to plan and budget. The barriers to accessing ECO have been really frustrating, very much as we anticipated, but it's still frustrating. More processes add hugely to the costs, and definitely the cherry picking. We work in a rural and small market town area. We had a lot of solid wall referrals that we've made, but almost all of them have not been delivered under ECO because ECO installers are focusing on the big cities and groups of homogeneous housing until all of those are done, because they want the most economic first. So they're not actually doing any of our solid wall installations that we're referring to, not any of them. Achieving margins to cover our own costs is quite challenging, even as a non-profit. We only want to break even. Having enough time in the home to deliver the quality advice and the follow-through to action and the cost of accreditations. And I don't want to be moany, but that's maybe something that will ease off over time, but it's worth mentioning. And then if I'm allowed to show a couple of examples quickly. Thank you. Just to illustrate my points, really. The first one, a detached bungalow, a couple with a home office, really high electricity bills. They were interested in PV. The PV company referred them for advice in the EPC, and the PV company actually pointed out they're using 7,000 kilowatt hours a year. So we did the standard things. We looked at how long are the lights on, use plug-in monitors, let's have a look. The lighting on its own was estimated at 2,500 kilowatt hours a year. People love a lot of lights on all the time. They also happen to have 4 fridges and freezers. They buy in bulk because they thought that's economical. And again, it's interesting people doing that. They have CCTV running 24/7 and home office equipment left on for long hours. I'm sure that's familiar to plenty of you. And so the result was that we spent a lot of time on advice on electricity consumption, and they put in their PV. So just importance of having time to give the proper advice. And then another very different example to highlight really the trigger point opportunity issue. New occupants in the house that's cold and mouldy, the LPG heating was costing them $1,900 in the first year, even though it was uncomfortable. old double glazing with leaky seals, but they were doing a major refurb, so it was the opportunity. So the importance there was that you get builders in who are engaged in delivering the wider measures and see the opportunities. And they put in an interesting old mix-up, which is quite typical in older houses that have had extensions and things. Air-to-water heat pump and air-to-air heat pumps, so for the heating and the hot water separately, and replace the double glazing. Cavity wall in one extension and the PV. And the electricity bill came down to £700 for the first year, and now they're comfortable. But the point there was to illustrate the trigger point opportunity and the need to engage the local RMI style builders. So those are my two main things, the advice and the local building trade. Thank you.
Thank you very much.